Hope you're doing well. It is a fantastic day to be alive. It's a beautiful, unreal Thursday. And oh, baby, it's great to have you all on here right now. There's so much to get into. Of course, the news at the top that just dropped last night around 5 p.m. Donald Trump and NATO saying, all right, we're getting a framework together on moving forward on Greenland, which is, whoa, didn't see that coming. Mark Carney was actually on a plane across the Atlantic when the news dropped, and they still don't know how to respond to this. They're still trying to figure out the communications around this. They're still trying to buy time with the press of how do we frame this? How do we work with this? How do we create fear out of this? Because this isn't working for us. This Greenland thing is supposed to go on for a year at this point so that we could use it, so that we could tell people that Trump's going to do the same thing to Canada. Trump's going to do the same. You see what's happening in Greenland? It's going to say the same thing's going to happen here. They're trying to push that. They're trying to figure out how they can use it because Mark Carney was poised. He was poised to call an election this spring when his voter base would be allowed to travel because they don't like traveling in the winter. It needs to be nice weather for an election. He's waiting for them to be able to travel and be able to be, okay, elbows up. We're going to fight on the front line of the border to fight against the Americans. Well, that's all. It's gone now. It's gone now. The deal is starting to move forward of what they're going to figure out with Greenland and secure the Western Hemisphere. We get talking about this. The media's reaction to it, our political, what do they call it? Yeah, our politicians, their reaction to it. What is happening here in this country around all of it? We're going to be talking about all of it, and I'm looking forward to jumping into it all with you. I'll be honest, so last night was a tough night. My wife will not see this. She does not watch this. For the sake of our relationship, she stays away from it. However, I have to give her kudos. Our little one is having a tough time these days, having a real tough time, not sleeping much. My wife is not sleeping much. I do my best to support where I can, but she's just like, you need to rest. You got to work. I got this. My wife's humming on like 3 hours of sleep these days. And I'm like, it's got to be something I can do. She's like, nope, there's nothing you can do. I want you to sleep. Best wife in the world. She's amazing. Great support. Even though we don't agree on politics, she still supports the show, supports what I do, and God bless her for it. And she's a warrior. And myself, I'm trying my best. I'm holding in. It's going to be a good day. But before we get into all of this, make sure you smash that like button. Make sure to share this with your friends. Subscribe if you haven't. And let's engage with the live chat. It's electric. I was stunned. Holy crap. We're already oh my gosh, we're already at 1.8 concurrent viewers. 1.8 thousand. I thought there was over 600 people waiting to watch this show today. I was stunned. Let's get into the nitty gritty of it all first. Let's run through the deal that is supposed to be coming through, or at least the fragments, the structure of a deal that we're looking at here. So details of the Trump-Greenland deal are starting to be revealed. The U.S. will gain control of small pockets of land in Greenland. The U.S. will be involved in Greenland's mineral rights. Greenland is estimated to hold reserves of natural resources worth as much as $5 trillion. The U.S. Golden Dome system will be involved in Greenland when it's built. The deal is designed to block Russian and Chinese influence in Greenland. This will open the door to U.S.-backed infrastructure investment. The duration of the deal will have an indefinite time frame. This means Donald Trump will have secured land, minerals, and defense in one deal. You know, Donald Trump doing what Donald Trump does, right? The big ask, let everyone freak out, because Canada, we are very aware of this happening in Canada. Let everyone freak out and then pull back. All right, now let's talk. Let's have some conversations. And that's what we saw happen. Mark Rutte and Donald Trump having a conversation about this and getting this all figured out is quite fascinating at this point in time. We had the CTV panel talk about this exact story and their perspective of what is happening with this. Of course, is always interesting. And watch this little 1 minute clip here of what they are seeing happening.
Because particularly that line, the entire Arctic region, like right away, alarm bells in RBR, like that, that clearly includes Canada. Does Canada have any information on what the heck this means? No.
So catch that, right? Let's rewind that because I accidentally had that like 2x speed. But the media in Canada is going to try and figure out some way that they can hold on to something that they can be concerned about to push that mentality of there's something we should be scared about from Donald Trump. There's something we should be scared about with the Americans, right? And with this situation, now that's kind of like tensions are now kind of come down. The defenses are coming down a little bit. We're figuring out no one's invading anybody at this point. But how can Canada be scared about this? And this is the question that Vashi Kapelos asked the panelists here.
Mattina's point segues exactly into what I wanted to ask you, Mike, because particularly that line, the entire Arctic region, like right away, alarm bells in our bureau, like that, that's clearly includes Canada. Does Canada have any information on what the heck this means?
Not yet. And, we have at the Bureau here tried to reach out to the Prime Minister's office, understanding that the bulk of the Prime Minister's office is now flying over the Atlantic due to land here back in Ottawa at roughly about 8:15, 8:30. So no answer just yet. They are working on one, the Prime Minister's office tells us. Same thing with Global Affairs Canada. They're likely also trying to parse through it themselves, Vashi, because whether or not Canada was part of this deal, is part of this deal, that's unclear. We know there had been discussions, there have constantly been discussions about our defenses on our northern border, specifically in the Arctic, making sure that we can guard against any kind of incursion from Russia or China. We know, and I was on that trip with Mattina, the Prime Minister's first ever trip as Prime Minister, March 18th, he lands in Iqaluit and announces a $6 billion over-the-horizon radar that he says is going to go up there that will be surveilling in the Arctic. So is that part of this? You'd have to think that's part of the Golden Dome. Canadian government hasn't been able to say yet. And as I said, partly because they're likely just getting some of the information now.
Interesting to note.
So again, that's the question. You're going to hear that a lot through our media is what piece of this can we push in fear? What piece of this can we be scared about? And the panelist's answer there was actually very, very to the point. Like, okay, how does this impact Canada? Well, how is this going to impact the Golden Dome, our Horizon missile system? Where do we fit in terms of the deal at this point in time? Where is this all going to go? And as more panelists on this specific show were asked questions, they are then, there's people that are more left-leaning and wanting to jump into that fear, wanting to lean into that fear more. And that's what one panelist did here at the 10:35 mark, doing that exact same strategy.
He thinks that he's got a deal, he's got something, and a lot of people actually they compliment Mark Rutte, saying he's become a bit of the Trump whisperer by listening to Donald Trump, taking his concerns seriously. But the one thing we don't know, Vashi, is there some kind of deal for the U.S. to own Greenland? Trump wouldn't say.
Right.
Oh, man, I love that last piece. Love it. Hey, is there any piece of this where Trump owns Greenland? What is been going on? We've been watching it here in Canada, folks, where they are trying to push the fear. They're trying to push the how terrified you should be of Donald Trump in the United States. Look what he's doing to Greenland. He's going to put troops in Greenland. NATO is moving troops into Greenland to defend against Donald Trump. Never going to happen. It's the big ass, the art of the deal. We all knew this was how he operates. This is how they do things. This is how he's done things up to this point. But everyone freaks out every time. Even his supporters were kind of like, do we want to be doing this, guys? Like, Trump, let's pull back a little bit. Let's pull back a little bit. Even his own supporters were kind of freaking out about this. And then here we are. The Mark Rutte, the Trump whisperer. They found a deal, at least so far, a framework to move forward on. Maybe an MOU. You get what I'm saying? You get what I'm saying. And with Mark Rutte being the Trump whisperer, I thought this photo was interesting that Mark Carney posted about 14 hours ago. Met with Secretary General of NATO, Davos, earlier today, Mark Rutte. We talked about the tests NATO is facing and Canada's resolute support for the alliance. We're quadrupling our defense spending, including scaling up our investments in Arctic security to defend the northwestern flank. And that's a photo of Mark Carney and Mark Rutte. And Mark Carney was left out of these conversations with Mark Rutte and Donald Trump because he chose his ego. He chose his pride. He went up in Davos, slammed his fist, said, this is not how we're going to do things anymore. The middle power is going to get together. We're going to wield our power and make sure we create a third way of fighting against the hegemony Hegemonous powers. Oh my gosh, I'm having trouble with that word today. The hegemony. We're going to fight against those powers. Well, and then he went, deuces, got on a plane, left, and Donald Trump came and did his speech. Donald Trump came and did deals. And the deal of what's going on with Greenland broke. Well, Mark Carney's in the air on a flight back to Canada. The pride and the ego. He had no idea any of this was going on. And this is the thing that Mark Carney's going to push, Canada's going to push, our media's going to push. You heard it there with that panelist. Is there any way that is Donald Trump going to own Greenland? Maybe he might still invade. Because that's the liberals' only way of keeping power in this country. And it's not just us. This has been happening in other Western countries with conservative. There's been conservative parties in other Western countries that are getting upset with Donald Trump because he's pushing all these crazy people into going to the left-leaning camp because they're all pushing Trump fear. Happened in Australia, happening in various other NATO countries. These conservative parties are getting very upset because liberals aren't doing anything here in Canada. They literally have done nothing. Everything Mark Carney said in his speech isn't even happening. He's been lying about it. And we'll get to that here shortly. And so when you have this whole idea like, oh, Donald Trump is going to invade Greenland, even that whole chaos. He's going to invade Greenland. It was never going to happen. But even so, this individual hopped on CNN to tell people to remember, look at what the deals the U.S. has done with Denmark over the past 10 weeks and just give your head a shake. This is what he had to say.
Talking about Greenland. Brett, do you think all of the threats and whether it's bluster, the tension with NATO allies, was it worth it?
Well, first off, I don't think we were ever going to use force. It was never, he only said I wouldn't take things off the table, but he likes to say I don't take things off the table. But Anderson, in the last 10 weeks, the State Department has approved 7 different arms sales to Denmark. Now, only one other country has had more arms sales approved, and that's Taiwan. And we've approved them for about 20 different countries. Nobody's done more than 2 except Denmark and Taiwan. So we were not about to fight a country we've been selling Hellfire missiles to for the last 2 months. And I think a lot of this rhetorical talk here, the European Union probably got a little bit further out for domestic political reasons. I think the president also maybe ended up further out because of domestic political reasons. He knows that the Republicans base loves to hear his muscular talk, and they know that he wants to be seen as a disruptor of some of the status quo and what he thinks have been stale alliances in the past. And I think he was trying to accomplish that as much as anything. Although today I'll note he did say how much he was committed to NATO and how we would have their back if they got in trouble.
What he's saying there is real. What he's saying there is true. Think about it. Why would you try to invade a country that you've been selling weapons to? Your own weapons to? That doesn't make any sense. But these are the details that people don't see and don't think about when all this is going down. The Copenhagen Post wrote about this back in December, just before Christmas. The U.S. approves military equipment sale to Denmark worth billions in DKK. The USA has approved a potential military equipment sale to Denmark valued at $951 million, equivalent to around 6 billion Danish kroner. This includes 236 advanced extended range air-to-air missiles and related equipment supplied by American aerospace and defense company RTX Corporation. Think about that. No one's invading Greenland. And when our mainstream media and those who want to push fear, get paid to push fear, try to tell you differently, you see stuff like this. We even go on the Defense Security Corporation website. It's all over here. AIM 9X Block 2 tactile missiles, November 12th. Okay, that was a deal that was done. We keep going through. An integrated battle command system with indirect fire protection capability, December 5th. Denmark, AIM 120C8 advanced medium range air-to-air missiles, December 5th as well. I know there's a couple more in here. And yeah, there it is. Denmark, AGM 114R Hellfire missiles, January 8th. Denmark, multi-mission maritime patrol and reconnaissance aircraft P-8A on December 29th. Look at all these weapons they've been selling to Denmark. You think they're just going to go invade Greenland? Come on, man. Come on, man. This is what we are currently facing, people. It's all about ignorance, especially in Canada, because we have a very insular media. We have laws and policies that don't allow specific American media to get into our country because we want to keep our culture. It's just how it operates and how it goes. On top of the likes of Bill C-11 that actually eliminates news on our platforms, and liberals will say, no, that's not what's happening. We're just trying to give back to creators. Trying to give back to our news, and we're protecting them. Nah, you knew what you were doing with that policy. So now we don't have news on Meta because of these issues, and that continues to create this insular perspective in Canada of what's happening, and stuff like this just simply will not get out. And that's why the Liberal government doesn't really like shows like mine, doesn't like shows like Jasmine Lane's, Moose on the Loose, all of those, because we're going to show you this stuff and be like, whoa, oh, okay, this is the art of the deal. This is Donald Trump being Donald Trump. I may not like it, but it's Donald Trump being Donald Trump, because now the Liberal government, if people know this stuff, no, they can't use that as fear to try and run on, because Mark Carney has zero record to run on. Oh, he got these deals done. He got deals done? Deals that are ticking off everybody in our country right now? Yeah, sounds awesome. Kate Harrison hopped on CBC to discuss Mark Carney's speech, who was a conservative on the CBC panel, and broke it down exactly what it was and what is going on, and gave everyone the time of day.
Not having a trade deal, and I know a lot of people would prefer to have this settled. But, you know, the UK and the EU did have whatever they have. They thought it was settled. Then they got threatened with tariffs unless Denmark gave up 90% of its territory. Now, that's not where it's apparently ended up, but they're giving up chunks of Greenland to him because he demanded it or else, right? So how do you reasonably get a deal with an administration that is acting like this and treating its partners like this? I mean, I just don't know what the path is.
Well, you start by getting back to the table, and the Prime Minister was elected to do just that. He said he was the right guy for the job in order to get back and have, again, his words, a new economic and security partnership with the United States. I know the last 9-10 months has been disruptive. I think that's putting it lightly. For decades and decades and decades before that, we had a stable and secure relationship with our largest trading partner. Going to Davos and giving a speech talking about a significant break in that relationship that serves as the grounds to, again, pursue we're not just talking about trade diversification, but rewriting the nature of relationships that we have with countries, including up until 9 months ago, our enemies. There's a difference between diversifying and then that wholesale shift that the Prime Minister is, I think, making the case for today. We have to remember that the U.S. is going to exist long after Donald Trump. Our relationship with them is very, very close. The Prime Minister was elected to try and get a resolution there, and that should remain part of the focus. So, and speechifying and then not even meeting with the man while there, to me, doesn't advance the Prime Minister's apparent objective of getting back and getting to the trade and negotiation table.
Very well put. You hear this a lot in the United States, you know, especially around the situation with ICE and the deportations. A lot of people don't like it, you know, specifically in the left-leaning cities. We don't like how this is going. Don't like what's going on. And the argument that typically gets brought up by the Republicans is, well, this was the mandate. This is exactly what Donald Trump ran on. This is what you said you wanted. The people said they wanted via a vote. So there's some people obviously that aren't going to like it because they're not the ones who voted for that, but they lost. They got the mandate. Trump got the mandate from the people. This is what they're going to go do. Mark Carney ran on the mandate of, I'm going to deal with Donald Trump. We're going to get a deal with Donald Trump. We're going to move at speeds that has never been seen before. That was his mandate. That's what he was voted on. That's what people wanted to put him in office for. Kate Harrison put it very well here. Not only has no deal been done, Donald Trump, now we're here in Davos, January, and Mark Carney says, it's over, it's done, it's a rupture, peace, I'm leaving. Not even meeting with the man to figure something out that he had a mandate to run on. Now he's ran to China to do deals with China. Sure, you can argue, well, had a mandate to diversify our trade. Sure. We also didn't give you a mandate to sell off everything to China. Oh, but you brought down canola tariffs, 84% down to 15% for 9 months. That starts March 1st. We're not even getting immediate relief on it. Was that the mandate? Was that the mandate? I told you what happened in Davos. Mark Carney, very well prepared speech. Was speaking on behalf of NATO. Wasn't speaking on behalf of Canada. Was speaking on behalf of NATO. But, however, it still was a speech built and created for one and one thing only. And Tracy Wilson brought this up on X. She was spot on. Going there and doing the speech wasn't for trade resolution. It was campaigning for a majority back home. She was right. To those Americans who are watching curious or watching the show and don't understand Canadian politics, our system doesn't work like yours. You guys have your elections every 4 years. It happens, and then you have like the by-elections, or not the by-elections, sorry, your midterms every 2 years, all that type of thing happens, right? So you have set dates. For us, if a government or a party doesn't get the majority of the seats in Parliament, which is essentially we have two houses. We have House of Commons, and then we have our Senate. That's it. Senate's the upper house, Parliament's the lower house. And when you don't have enough seats in that House of Commons, you have what they call a minority government. You haven't got enough votes from across the country to form a majority government, a proper government like you would see in the United States, what you guys have. So a minority government is forced to work with other parties to push bills forward and vote on them, and they have to agree on these bills together, and they move the stuff together. Mark Carney has that right now. And if anything falters, any vote falters, then we go instantly back to an election. That's how it works up here. So right now, Mark Carney is a minority government. He's trying to scrounge right now to get a majority. And this speech was him trying to instill fear in the Canadian people, tell them that we're done with the United States. Screw them. They're like our 80% trading partner, but screw them. We're done with them. We're going to China. We're going to go join the middle powers and wield our power as if we're playing D&D. That's what we're going to do. And that's what that was. And that's why that deal that happened with Donald Trump and NATO yesterday, Mark Rutte, was very bad for Mark Carney, because he did that speech for NATO, but he did it to get support back home. We even saw conservatives, quote unquote, supporting that speech and being like, wow, that was awesome. I'm so proud of him back home. Now, Trump did this deal the next day, takes the wind out of Carney's sails as he comes back to Ottawa, and now he has to face reality. Face the reality that we are completely out of our jobs. Face the reality that we are struggling financially as a country. Face the reality that still not pipelines been built, and not even so much as a promise of we got the MOU, but no plans for a pipeline really have been brought forward yet being done. We have no real plans to really diversify our resources. And here we go. We think about all the lies that he spewed in that speech. Interprovincial trade barriers did not come down between provinces. He took off maybe all of $100 off income taxes for Canadians, but said we made these huge income tax cuts. We did not create more jobs than the U.S. has in absolute numbers. And the auto sector in Ontario, which is a big voting base in Canada, hates your guts after what you did with China. So you're going to come back to Canada, land in Ottawa, and now have to face the reality as Parliament sits next week to face the people of what you actually are getting done here. All this Trump, Greenland, what's happening here, China here, Russia that, Russia's a threat, won't say nothing about China, Trump's a threat, won't say nothing about China. Well, that all fugazi, blowing up into midair. You can't run this fear crap anymore because you're the rubber's going to meet the road. You can do it for maybe a couple more weeks, but the rubber's going to meet the road real quick. And it's on the Conservative Party now to bridge the gap of giving a hopeful message while still holding this BS accountable. Conservative Jenny Roth said exactly what I just said here on CBC, but a little more eloquent, a little bit more, I guess, digestible. But what she said here was totally spot on.
A criticism that there isn't a deal with the U.S. I mean, whether it was Prime Minister Poilievre, Prime Minister Singh, Prime Minister May, I don't know if it's the Canadian Prime Minister's fault or the President of the United States' fault in that particular case, because Europe thought they had a deal and then they were threatened, and here we are. I mean, just what do you make of what Mark Carney said yesterday and where things kind of stand on that?
I mean, I think the extent to which the Prime Minister's style and syntax and look and feel resonated as strong leadership speaks to the level of leadership we had become accustomed to in this country. And I will grant that I think he rose above that level. And he appeared sort of sophisticated and suited to the moment and that sort of thing. But it's interesting, Anne's reaction is really interesting to me because I think there are other people who read the speech as a really pragmatic take where actually we'd have to compromise and we wouldn't be able to stand up and be so values and principles based because we're in this new world order. In a way, I think that reveals how sort of unclear it was. It was, on the one hand, we need to be more pragmatic. On the other hand, we need to stand up to these forces. From my perspective, he acknowledged a truth about the world that some of us have been talking about for a few years now. So that part's obvious. And then the bigger problem for me was the pivot to Canada and what we're doing. And I thought that was honestly a wild exaggeration and just not at all true. This idea that we've removed interprovincial trade barriers, we have not. This idea that we've invested in the military, we have not. There's not even appropriated funds, let alone spent funds, to get defense spending to where it needs to be. The idea that we're getting natural resources to market, that we're driving billions in investment, none of this is true. It's all talk. And so, if he wants to set that bar for himself, great. But and Canadians are patient. They like what they're hearing from a style perspective. But eventually he's going to get off a plane in Ottawa, and Canadians are going to start to say, okay, now what? When does the rubber hit the road?
Spot on. Spot on. Again, this was cool. This was cool for Mark Carney. The past couple of days were really cool for Mark Carney. Cool for the Liberal Party. They got to go jet setting, go to Davos, Switzerland, go to the sweet ski town, meet with all the crazy, amazing global elites, make them feel good about themselves. Now you're landing back in Ottawa. Now you have to give real answers for what's been going on. Now you're going to have to face constituents. Again, you can ride this high for a couple of weeks because the media will hold your water for it for some time. But time's coming. You have to give some real results now, folks. And I'll just pause for 2 seconds because holy crap, we hit a high of 5.9 concurrent viewers on the stream. This is crazy. This is psychotic. I just started doing these live streams this time last week, and we hit a top of 1.8. Now we're close to 6,000 concurrent viewers. That tells me a lot. Thank you so much. I'll tell you that much. Thank you so much. Because right now, we come back to Canada. Mark Carney's back in Canada now and has to face a serious reality at this point in time. The monster in the room, the deal with the devil he did a deal with China. What happens now? Well, Michael Kovrig had this to say about Mark Carney's speech after it happened. And Michael Kovrig, for those who don't know him, especially here in Canada, he was a Canadian journalist, Canadian, I should say, who went over to China and just got imprisoned and was in Chinese prison for 1,000 days until we finally were able to negotiate to get him back home. So he's very well versed in talks with China, very well versed in what's going on with China. And he said this about Mark Carney's speech. He says, "This is the best speech by a world leader that I have read in a very long time. More later, but for now, just read what Mark Carney has to say. Rhetorically, at least, he has met the geopolitical moment. But there's just one problem. It also has the most subversively horrifying subtext by a Western world leader who is not Trump that I've read in a very long time. Carney's, or his speechwriter's, choice of Havel's lie metaphor is rhetorically dangerous. It blurs the difference between democratic hypocrisy and totalitarian coercion, and invites the interpretation that liberal order itself has been a quasi-ideological fraud, which, for all its many flaws, it has not been. For example, Canada was not coerced into the LRBIO in the way of Havel's shopkeepers were coerced into communist conformity. It's a problematic parallel, and there are more of them. I'm still thinking about this. It's a powerful speech, but has some dangerous undercurrents. A lot depends on what is meant." And then, the Beaverton posts this, which, is what it is. Canada chooses lawful evil over chaotic evil. Canada feels like they were given no choice. We're going to choose Donald Trump because he's evil, instead of we had a bit of a setback there, folks. Sorry about that. Lawful, we're going to choose China, the lawful evil over a chaotic evil. Lawful, even that headline is hilarious. A lawful evil, eh? Lawful evil. Cool. Fair enough. It's this is where we're going here, folks, is we're moving closer and closer to the likes of China. They even mentioned it as well here with on the Bureau, Sam Cooper. It says, former senior Mountie, Carney's RCMP Chinese police cooperation deal is a counterintelligence danger that risks sovereignty. The big headlines with Carney meeting with China was about EVs. That's what you kept seeing. Electric vehicles. They're going to bring in 49,000 Chinese EVs. 35% of our electric vehicle sector, by the way, industry. And but the number they keep pushing is 3% of overall cars in the country. And it's like, well, okay, but you bring in 35% Chinese cars for one sector, which is wild. That's the headline, right? But the subtext of that was that we are now sharing intelligence with China. Our RCMP is going to be working with the CCP on intelligence now. Does that seem like a good idea? The country that has completely subverted our housing, our housing market. The country that has pushed fentanyl into our country. The country that has been money laundering across our country, involved in a crazy amount of organized crime. Now that they are actually working with the Mexican cartels and pushing drugs and actually creating drugs here in Canada and pushing it in the United States and using the Calistanis to move that product. We're going to begin RCMP working with them to do that. So, former senior Mountie says Carney's RCMP Chinese police cooperation deal is a counterintelligence danger that risks sovereignty. I've been told that our sovereignty is at risk from the United States this whole time. But we're now just going to throw everything over to China because Mark Carney, we'll get into this in my afternoon video, but Mark Carney is the man for the plan for a managed decline of a country. That's what he and his globalist friends are trying to do, is that a managed decline of the West and bring them down and then sell us off to China because they have the system that they want us to work with. That's why he's really mad at Donald Trump, because he's screwing everything up. Donald Trump's restoring power back to the West, restoring power back to the U.S. And Carney and his globalist friends were like, no, that wasn't supposed to be the plan. We're supposed to be managed decline, managed destruction, managed demolition of the West, make them weaker so that we can bring in China, work with China, and bring in the centralized system where we control the population. That's where this is going. Again, that's my perspective from what I'm reading. But let's read this. After nearly 5 decades in policing, intelligence, and financial crime investigations, including professional experience working in Asia, I have learned a simple rule. Who you cooperate with matters as much as what you cooperate on. Last week, the Prime Minister's office announced that Canada and the People's Republic of China will enhance law enforcement cooperation on drug trafficking, transnational crime, and cybercrime and money laundering. On paper, this sounds reasonable. Fentanyl is devastating communities. Cybercrime drains billions. Organized crime adapts faster than borders. But experience teaches me that cooperation with the PRC is never just technical, never apolitical, and never insulated from the priorities of the Chinese Communist Party. Canadians deserve to understand the risks. In Canada, policing is constrained by courts' disclosure rules, independent prosecutors, and entrenched, if imperfect, commitment to individual rights. In the PRC, law enforcement is an extension of state security. Its primary function is not public safety, as Canadians understand it, but regime stability. During my work in Asia, this distinction was never subtle. Human rights, due process, and judicial independence were not guiding principles. They were obstacles to be managed. Criminal labels, fraud, subversion, cybercrime, economic offenses were routinely applied to political, ethnic, or commercial targets when it suited the state. This matters because when Canada cooperates with such a system, we are not dealing with an equal partner operating under comparable legal and ethical constraints, which is different than working with all of our other Western allies. This is the problem. We start having security deals with the likes of China. They don't operate the same way we do. And considering they've been subverting our country for so long, now we're just opening up the door wide open for them. Not only with this situation, now we're just giving them our sharing intelligence with them. We're now allowing them to bring in their 49,000 vehicles, EVs, that will be loaded with Chinese software, overseen by the state of China, the PRC. They're not a free market. So whoever we work with, they're fabricating these cars over in China and shipping them here. That's part of the deal. That seem like a good idea to you? Does that sound like a smart idea? Well, again, Mark Carney's a smart guy. He knows what he's doing. And that's exactly what he wants. He was just waiting for things to get so bad with Donald Trump that he had the political capital and allowance from the Canadian people, or his base, to now go over to China and do this. So, even our relationship with Donald Trump, saying he was going to handle it, it's going to be okay, we'll get a deal, it was never the plan. And then one time we got close to getting a deal with Donald Trump, it magically got blown up because of something Doug Ford did where he passed it by Mark Carney. And Mark Carney said, yeah, looks good. Then that ad goes out in the United States. Boom, trade deal goes gone. I want to finish off with this, though. The Brave New Normal podcast, hosted by Jason James, has investigative reporter Sam Cooper on regularly. And Sam Cooper brought this up when it comes to what China and Russia are currently doing as a context and background to what we are witnessing. We'll watch this. I'll share a couple thoughts on it. Then we'll get to the super chats and chat a lot with and make sure to talk with you guys and get your perspective on everything that we are seeing.
A literal video clip from, I believe, 2023 of Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping meeting outside a Russian facility. And it's after a dinner or something. And Putin says, we are seeing opportunities that we have not seen in 100 years. And Xi says, I agree. So they both, Xi and Putin, believe that their empires should be global hegemons. Xi has a realistic chance. Putin, at this point, he's deluded. He's not going to get there, but he'll burn everything down to try to get there. So those two have agreed, along with Iran and North Korea, that now is the time to push to overcome what was called the Western rules-based order that came out of World War II and, Ronald Reagan winning the Cold War. And so you're right. Everyone, the best analysis I've seen is that the West has squandered the sort of decades that followed Ronald Reagan's, drive and essential victory over the Soviet Empire, and the peace dividend. This was, everyone was getting fat, rich, and lazy in the West. This is where the whole globalism that, we talk about and that you often look into came from. That is, rich people in cities in the West pushing their governments to increase trade with these, states. People were arguing, this is the end of history. The West won. Now it's all about international trade. Everyone gets rich. But that wasn't what was happening. People like Xi were coldly biding their time, using that internationalism and global trade to steal Western technology. And here we are.
Boom. Who's your daddy? Xi Jinping is Canada's daddy right now. That's what's happening. And that was spot on. The arrogance of the West, this goes across administrations here in Canada as well as in the US, of, you'll bring him in, we'll show him what democracy is all about, and, we know better, we can manage the flame. Could we? Look at how we dealt with the pandemic. What happened in the pandemic? Originated in China. We saw all the crazy headlines coming out. Oh my gosh, people just falling in the street. And we saw what China did to deal with it. And the West followed suit. The West followed China's lead on how to deal with COVID. Wow. That was the start of all of this, folks. That was the start of all of it. And that's where you really have to think about it. But let's move over to the super chats. There's some that we got to address. We actually peaked at like 6.2 thousand viewers, folks. This is amazing. And we've been hovering at 5,500 throughout this. You guys are amazing. Let's see if we can get to these super chats. Woo! All right, Mike Stewart. Mike Stewart coming in hot. Says, my fellow Canadians, read Dr. Frank Decotter. He's got the CCP pegged. Prepare yourselves. Okay, you got it, Mike Stewart. Rav Buffalo, the man, the myth, the legend. The man who understands my heart when it comes to wrestling, but also loves politics. My American brother in Buffalo. GM, good morning, Josh. Did you ever think that Canada would become part of BRICS? Also, is Trump right when he said Canada wouldn't support the U.S. in a conflict? Is Trump right when he said Canada? That's I don't think that's actually true. Canada will always be there. We always will. People will talk about the idea of like when you guys have like your huge forest fires or, this ice storm you guys are going to have. There's people who are like floating the idea of like, we won't send our people down to help them. We won't take them out because we help you guys a lot when it comes to natural disasters, vice versa. And people are like, oh, we won't help them. Forget them. We will always be there to help them. This is all just fear tactics at this point. We will always be there. No matter whether we like it or not. Mike Stewart 4752 says, if you watch Chinese dissidents discuss our trade deal with China, they all say this is a terrible idea. They know. Yeah. Everyone in our country, Chinese dissidents, part of that diaspora group, are saying, this is terrible. They are terrified, man. They're terrified, and they should be. Boy180 says, keep up the good work, Josh. Thanks, boy. Let's go. Jessica says, do you think Pierre needs to stop talking about carbon tax and switch to another subject if he wants to win? I see many cons aren't happy with that. Yeah, Pierre just needs to focus on cost of living right now until it seems like things are shifting. But right now, Carney's going to fly on this high right now of Davos for a couple weeks. But the Conservatives need to do is they need to keep mentioning hope. They keep bringing hope, not just showing all the things that are wrong, but bringing hope of what they can do, what they can bring to the table, how things could look like here in Canada with them at the helm, and as well hold Carney accountable on these issues of how he's not improved affordability. And then keep hammering on affordability because that's the thing Canadians actually care about right now. They don't care about anything else. Sure, the Trump's Greenland thing is a nice distraction, but that's virtually kind of taken care of now. The Liberals will try to squeeze more juice out of it, but it's going to come back down to, okay, that's happening abroad. Let's look us back home. Things are a mess. What are you going to do, Mark Carney? OJ Man Studios says, maybe I'm just a pessimist at this point, but I think you're giving the general Canadian population too much credit and seeing Carney for what he is and calling him out for it. I really do hope I'm wrong in my assessment. I'm curious where you're coming from on that one. I think the general population it's getting there. It's already, the sentiment's already growing. They're gonna have you're gonna have spikes in Carney's favorability, which we'll see here in a couple weeks, but it'll come back down to baseline and get lower. We've seen it in all the polls. His favorability's been dropping since July. It's been a steady decline. People are seeing what he's doing and they're not happy with it. Mike Stewart says the CCP cares nothing for laws. Cares nothing for laws. That's true. Not our laws, at least. Laura Dumont dropping $14 on the chat. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it, Laura. You're amazing. CTR Lee 0319 says, you also forget that the CCP is threatening the Chinese and Hong Kong diasporas here too, Josh. Just ask Joe Tay. Yeah, actually, me and Joe Tay actually talk quite frequently offline. We talk on and off offline. And you're right. And I think obviously you probably sent that just before I mentioned the diaspora group here. But yeah, our diaspora groups are terrified and they are not happy with us and they are threatening our groups here. Joe Tay, you have Kevin Vong was another subject to that, which was he had a wild story, his experience in Toronto. I'll give a quick kind of story of that, which was very interesting. So he was living in Toronto and they found out the route that his wife would walk to work. And they started posting posters on her walk to work with, posters of like Kevin Vong's a traitor, Kevin Vong's this, like really nasty things. And that was, again, the PRC, the CCP telling Kevin, again, he was an MP at the time, you better play ball. We know where you live. We know your wife's exact walk to work. Be careful. That's how they will operate. And they do that to normal citizens as well. And it's spooky. We had three Chinese police stations operating in Toronto, by the way. Mark Demeline says, Carney will jeopardize the life of every Canadian to save his own face. Sorry, Canada, you lose. Yep, that's exactly what we warned of. That's what we warned of. Rhonda in the general chat saying Josh would be awesome to do an interview with Joe. Like, trust me, I'm working on it. I've been trying to. He's got his own strategy. He's in the process of implementing right now, and he's kind of being very cautious with what he does for in terms of interviews. But I'm working on it. I'm working on it with him for sure. Mark Blanco 9813 says protect your encryption keys to your national firewall. Mark Carney may have already released them with his commitment to the NWO. Okay. Mike Stewart 4752 says destroy these cars where you when you see them, make them untenable to own. This is now the plan. Let's not do that. Let's not destroy people's property. I understand the perspective, but we are not the far left who goes destroying Teslas because they're mad at Elon Musk. However, we do want to make it untenable from a market perspective for them to own. So let's focus on culture rather than guerrilla tactics of destroying people's property. The New Life F1S says, time to drop the gloves, Canada. Yeah, elbows got to go down. Elbows got to go down. And you now need to start holding our political elite accountable for everything they are doing. Mark Bonko. Oh, just dropped $100 on the chat.
Here comes the money.
Here we go. Money talk.
Here comes the money. Money, money, money.
He says, Americans love Canadians like family. God bless you, Mark. We love you too. We love you too. Thank you for the love through all this nonsense. We got you. We got you. We're going to give you a nice heart for that one. Appreciate it. Mark, again, drops $50. He dropped $150.
Here comes the money.
Here we go. Money talk.
Here comes the money. Money, money.
Gee, America loves you, Canada. Man, Mark just spent $150 wanting to tell Canadians that America loves them. We love the love. This is awesome.
Amazing.
We love to see it. We love to see it. Oh, man. God bless. People suck dogs rule. Dropping $50 on the chat.
Here comes the money.
Here we go. Money talk.
Here comes the money.
All right. Setup. 1, Ford doesn't support Pierre Poilievre. 2, praises Mark Carney. 3, bully against Donald Trump with Carney now attacking Mark Carney. Donald Trump. Oh, sorry. 3, bully against Donald Trump with Carney now attacking. 4, Mark Carney will do something good for Ontario. 5, Doug Ford will look like a hero. Bad movie plot setup. Very possible. It's something significant has to happen though with that auto industry. Doing this whole Chinese deal, like Doug Ford was doing the whole gambit yesterday with the press conferences and getting the industry leaders up on board and just railing on this policy with China. It's got to be something big. But we'll see. Oh man. Laura Dumont, 1984 says, please summarize Operation Fox Hunt. Whoa. That's a great question. Let's look into what are we doing here. Oh, I see what you're saying. Operation Fox Hunt is a global operation of the Government of People's, the PRC, whose purported aim to capture or harass political dissenters. It was launched in 2014 under the General Secretariatship of Xi Jinping and forces on repatriating wanted Chinese nationals from other countries. Yes, that's a great point. Operation Fox Hunt summarized right there. And because the thing is, I had Jason James on the show and he explained what the PRC does and how China operates very, very well. And the way he explained it, the way the CCP views their citizens and citizens have this relationship with their government is if you go to anywhere in the world, you're seen as an extension of China. You're an extension of the CCP, and they are a weapon that they can use in these other countries. Versus if you're an American, you're Canadian, and you say, I'm going to move to Iran. Probably wouldn't do that, but let's take that for example. Australia. Let's go to Australia. That's a more fun example. Move to Australia. You are seen as an American living in Australia, and you will always serve your master back home in America. No matter what happens in Australia, you will always serve Trump. You will always serve America. If you're Canadian, you'll always serve Carney. You'll always serve Canada. So if those countries if the motherland comes in conflict with these countries, well, you know whose side you need to take. And that's kind of how China operates with their people. So that's why when you have people who have fled China, who hate what China's turned into and the CCP and what they've done to China, they get intimidated. The Chinese police stations pay a visit, intimidate them, do what they did to Kevin Vuong. They make sure they scare them into doing what Mr. Xi Jinping wants them to do. It is fascinating. Let's go. We keep moving forward here. OJ Man Studios. Oh my gosh.
Here comes the money.
Here we go.
$50 super chat. Holy jump. Some of my more left-leaning family members recognize the overall economic struggles of Canadians. However, they and their friend groups can't seem to put it together that it is due to failed Liberal policy. That's where my doubt comes from. Yes, you would be correct. I have friends who are in that exact same boat that you are. They keep kind of focusing on other things that aren't these issues. The time's coming. That's the thing is Mark Carney's voting block is large, and a large portion of it is that 55 plus 60 plus group. However, if you see a lot of these polls that have come out, you got the 21 to 30s right now, 18 to 30s that are 50% trending conservative right now. And every other age group is trending into conservative territory now. So it also depends where you live. Do you live in a city? Yeah, a lot of liberals live in cities. That's also going to kind of impact what's happening around you. Do you live in the East Coast? That's another question. A lot of left, even people who say they're conservative out here are left-leaning, right? We saw that with Chris D'Entremont, who says, I'm a red Tory, right? It happens. It all depends where you're living too. But I see the trend. The trend's moving. Nylock Tage says, Josh, are you still coming to Calgary for the CPC Con? I am. And don't you know it, dude? I know you guys are doing your thing at City Hall or in the Stampede grounds with the Alberta separation situation. All I know, I've seen some nonsense happening online with all the creators and stuff, and that's been wild to watch, of like people fighting online. I'm like, I'm just here to show up to have a good time. I'm here to talk. Let's have some conversations, folks. I love you guys. You know, if separation or not, let's talk. I'm here to chat. Always here. But yeah, I will be there. 100% will be there. People Suck Dogs Rule says it will be the Ring of Fire with Chinese backing, not U.S. Ooh. Ring of Fire in Ontario, which is a huge area where our critical minerals lie in Ontario. People Suck Dogs Rule saying they will have Chinese backing, not U.S. backing. That's terrifying. You could be onto something there. You could be onto something. Bueno Kitty 3497 says, I don't know if this was mentioned, but 2 days ago, Juno News dropped an article about how our media will be helping the Chinese run media and vice versa in each other's countries. Yes, I have to look into that more specifically, but yes, they did do like a cultural deal as well, where they're trying to import more Chinese culture into Canada. So I would imagine if what you said there is accurate and true, it might be a part of what is being said there. Moonlight Ace for F4P says the America loves Canadian. We just want a stronger Canadians to make a stronger West. 100%. We couldn't agree more. We would love to see a stronger Canada. I think, but the thing is too, I'll put this to you. There's a lot of conservatives in Canada who are very upset with Donald Trump because we wanted Pierre Poilievre and we feel like Trump screwed up our election. A lot of conservatives in Canada feel that way. So that's the other problem is like people, a lot of even the right party here are just like, don't like him because they feel like they screwed our election up. Whether you believe it's true or not, that's just the sentiment with some on the right as well. Jessica says tomorrow will be the 20th anniversary that Harper will won his first election. You got to get him on the show soon. Here's to freedom. Jessica's the #1 Harper fan. Yeah, dude. Yeah, 100%. Like, dude, I would love to get him on. Would love to get him on. It's been 20 years since he was first elected. Isn't that terrifying? That's terrifying in terms of like a lot of time has passed. And it's been 10 years, coming up on 11 years since he was in power. And the Liberals still use him as a fear-mongering tactic, which is fascinating. Marco Perusa says, should Pierre care about his approval rating? No. Approval ratings, is that whole thing is BS at this point. I'm not paying much attention to it because I'm paying attention to the polls and the conservatives and the Liberals. And right now, they're 40% apiece. That's what matters. People actually vote on party. They don't really vote on the leader here. And right now, the Poilievre's approval rating is just it's more propaganda to try and get people to get conservatives to abandon Pierre Poilievre. That's what that is. And I'm not buying it. I'm seeing what the polls are doing. I'm focused on that. And this is why I know people will point out, well, that seems to be in direct contrast to what you're sharing earlier about Mark Carney's approval rating. The Prime Minister's approval rating is far more interesting because he's doing the job. And that actually is more of a tell on what he's doing versus the guy who's just in opposition, keeping an eye on things. OJ Man Studio says, fair points you make. Glad to have you doing what you do. Keep it up. Thank you, man. Appreciate it. You're awesome. Thanks for you stepping in the chat and talking to us. Really appreciate it. True Blooded Patriot says, I believe with the deal that Canada just made with China, it's going to call a spring election and we're going to see huge amounts of foreign interference. You're dang straight. You saw all the Chinese foreign interference that happened to get Carney to be able to lead the Liberal Party. We saw it during the election as well. The WeChats and all that. It's going to happen. And RCMP have shown that they do not care. And maybe not so much the RCMP, but the Liberals have put pressure on the RCMP to not care about it. And that's very concerning. So we're going to have a heavy lift in our spring election, likely when that comes. And shows like this are going to get throttled. I know it's going to happen. And I'm in the midst of making plans to be a lot more creative in our messaging to get around those throttles. So I will leave it there unless I'm missing something. Yeah, I'm just going to make sure I don't miss any super chats here. No, I think we're good. I think we got it all. We had a great stream here, folks. Awesome stream. We capped out at about 6,200, which is amazing for us. Because I don't include the Trump stream yesterday because y'all tuned in for Donald Trump and that got to 10,000. But the show itself, 6,200. we've been just boom. First day is 1.8. Second day, 2,500. Third day, 3,000. Fourth day, 4,000. Today is 6,200. Gee, you guys are awesome. This is wild. Nylock says, hit me up. We'll get you set up for some interviews. Yes. I got your email. I'm going to go do that this morning between my shows. I'll send you an email. We'll get that all sorted out. Reg says there's 2 more super chats. People suck dogs rule says there was a spring election. My concern is the separation. People wouldn't vote for PP. Think that would ruin our chances of separation. Dig into that with your people. Yeah, absolutely. We'll take a good strong look at that for sure. This is great, folks. You guys are awesome. I will see you this afternoon. You guys are amazing. Oh, one last super chat coming in. Mark Demeline says, Carney is Canada's Biden. He will have the nation at the stairs of the gallows before someone comes in and saves Canada. Fascinating. Love to see it. Well, first off, thank you to all of our American friends who've been joining us. Obviously, all the Canadians. This is your show, baby. This is your show. You guys are awesome. I'll see you this afternoon. Have yourselves a good one. I'm out.